Yes,
Okay.
we figured it out.
Good.
Charlie can make it now. You did.
Yeah, everybody should be able to make it now. He should, yeah, tell him to call us.
I'm sending him the link.
Oh, yeah, yeah, good.
I'll send him the link from the email.
There's everybody coming in.
Yeah.
And maybe he's there already.
Just said Charlie's joining now.
Oh, he's there.
Okay. Sorry for the delay, folks joining here. We had the wrong meeting open.
Charlie would be Charlie Barrett.
Yes. Okay, I think we're ready to call the meeting to order now that we've got it all figured out. So, I will call the meeting to order at 7:07. And what I need is the agenda again. Sorry. So first item is make any agenda revisions. Do we have any?
I have a permit that's gonna need to be one for a DRB, so just put that on somewhere there. But I think we can, I'm sorry, my throat is sore.
You need something to
I go.
lodge. Okay, so
We're gonna have to
permit,
set a hearing date for an application.
and we have meeting minutes probably to approve in the
Yes.
last minute. And they'll do that, we'll do that later, right?
Okay, if that's what you'd like to.
Well,
do.
the hearing starts in at 10 after, right? We have 2 minutes. We can probably approve the minutes in 2 minutes. I read them. We made edits. It's really you and me who were,
And Will.
and Will is
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I am here. I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. And I'll second it.
Okay,
And all in favor?
Aye,
okay,
Aye.
aye.
and
Great.
an abstention.
I abstain.
Because
I
you
was not there.
was not there. All right, so then we are gonna wait 1 more minute and then we'll call the hearing continuance to order.
Oh, I will say that the file name was 1/8/24 and it should be 1/8/25.
In your note minutes?
No, when I sent it around,
Oh, okay.
okay. But it was correct in the minutes themselves.
Okay, good.
So if you're looking for it, you should change it.
Right. Well, I'm gonna call the hearing to order. And the first thing I want to do is all interested parties, I'd like you to be sworn in. So anybody up there in the Zoom who would like to speak, as well as all of you in attendance, I'm gonna ask that you raise your right hand. So all of you who are gonna speak, if you can turn your videos on. Thank you. And I'm gonna ask you to raise your right hand. Anybody else who's gonna speak or ask questions, I think then you should be sworn, sworn in. What?
Who is iPad?
Graham's, I,
No, that,
Yeah, that's the note taker. yeah.
okay.
Who is that?
it's like an electronic notation.
Oh, is
Yes.
that, her name's right there. You wanna take yourself off of mute?
Oh, I see.
Can you unmute her? Do you have to unmute her?
No, I shouldn't have to.
Go ahead, unmute yourself, ma'am.
Teresa Quinton.
Teresa Quinn, there we go. All right, please, everybody raise your hands. And affirm that I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury. You can, yes, nod, say yes. nod up there? Give me a little thumbs up, something? Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's done. Now we might as well continue the hearing. So last time we saw this, hang on a sec, last time we were here, let me give the name of this, hearing. It's a continuance for the Barish Estate. It's the zoning permit application, 2024-27. All right. And it's for a subdivision to enable the conveyance of lots to the beneficiaries of the estate. And we sent it back to the estate lawyer and interested parties to resolve a few issues we were concerned with. So one of them was the Darlene Covey's boundary and agreement, and that included the concerns around the wastewater no build zone that went into her property, and then the access to the larger lot that is designated to Janet, correct? Those are the two things that we had.
Yes,
Am I right? Will, am I missing anything? Okay, great. So let's continue that. And Janet, you've had your hand up. What's up?
So first of all, I forgot my hearing aid, so I'm gonna ask all of you to speak up a little bit.
And speak
Thank you.
into this so the people
you.
up there can hear you.
So when we left the last time, one of the things that the DRB suggested to us is that we take the measure back to the probate court, because clearly we were having difficulty with resolving it in a way that made it comfortable for the DRB to figure out whether to approve the subdivision. So there was some correspondence back and forth, and on, I believe, January 15th, and Heather can correct me, we all got an email from Heather with some new maps. The map included the right of way as it originally had been drawn up the driveway and then into the woods. And it included a motion that she was going to propose to the court to accept the right of way as originally proposed. And she had submitted another map which drastically altered Mark's portion of the property and took a large amount from mine, which apparently neither Mark knew about or I did. So I was ecstatic that we had finished settling the estate. The motion was to the court to accept the stipulation change to have a right of way off of my dad's driveway and into the landlocked portion of my property. I called my brother Charlie and I said, Charlie, it's done. We did it. And he was very relieved. And I thanked everybody for the hard effort and said that we can now move on. In response to that email to everyone, another email came from Heather saying she changed her mind and she was going to withdraw that motion to the court. And also explain that Mark did not want that additional property and that neither one of us did. So that map was null and void. The map was still there with the original right of way on it. And it has the one with the green line that goes up a
I
tiny
think
bit
it's
of the
this one you're
driveway.
looking at. Can you tell us, is this the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was the map that came to all of us with the stipulation to the court, asking them to, because it was not originally stipulated in the will, asking the court to accept that stipulation change.
Right.
However, as I said, after I thanked everybody for their hard work and told Charlie, we've done it, you're going to be able to not have to worry about this anymore. We received a response from Heather saying that she changed her mind and she would not be filing that to the court, which was most confusing. Anyway, then
May
some
I
more.
interrupt? I haven't seen any of this correspondence.
Correct,
Okay.
because she sent it to all of the heirs and beneficiaries and then withdrew. We got an email saying, I'm withdrawing my motion and I'm not going to file it with the court, which is probably why you never received it.
Okay,
So there was some back and forth, and then surprisingly, another motion, and I don't know that it's a motion, it's a letter that went to you about a lot of legal eyes that I didn't get about your boundaries and whether you were allowed to do this or whatever. So I recalled the DRB saying, if you can't resolve it, please ask the court to do it so that you can come to some resolution and this can be done. I've been represented by Caroline Earl because I can't do that kind of thing myself. I can do what I think is going to help us get this finished so that my dad can have his wishes met, that there isn't strife and that it is resolved. So Caroline filed yesterday a motion to the court and said we are seeking assistance from the court to please listen to the evidence, make a decision so that we can get the right of way into the property and have it completed. That is now at the court. And so the next step is the court will ask for evidence and ask for a way to figure out how to resolve this in the best wishes and interest of the estate. So at this point, because it is now in the court and basically out of our hands, my motion is that the DRB do what it said in the minutes, which is offer a continuance until we can have something to bring back to the DRB so that they can look at the information and make an informed decision. So my motion is that we continuance on the Barish estate until there is information from the court and we can all move forward with a resolution.
Thank you. That seems reasonable. Heather, do you have additional information you would like to submit, or do you support us continuing this hearing so that, as you said, most of this should be worked out in probate court? So we,
Well, first of all, the boundary, you asked about the boundary, and that was resolved. And I actually have the boundary agreement signed if you'd
Great.
like them.
great. If you would like to submit one for evidence, that would be good. Yes.
Well, it's a boundary agreement, so I don't think you actually need this because we're not asking for approval, but I think that you
Well-
want it, so.
Yes, we did. It was a part of what we were working.
It'd be helpful to have that electronically.
I did email it to
Yeah.
Karen.
there are
Yeah,
a
you
number of
did. I saw
documents
that.
There.
Okay, good. Well, that's one thing resolved. Great. And what about the access, the right away?
And so not to be confused about that, since we were still talking about the subdivision. We took the survey and then took the subdivision off it. And so we were able to file a survey that if you open the folded pages. We were able to record a survey that just has the boundaries on it, so that the boundary agreement refers to that.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So this is the boundary agreement
Yeah,
and Darlene supports the boundary agreement.
yes,
Great. Wonderful,
so that's resolved.
wonderful.
When did this come to me?
This was in an email that I saw from Karen today, was it? Or yesterday, since I saw it today.
I
It
saw,
was today.
Thank you, Will.
okay, I didn't see it. I
Yeah,
saw
there were a lot
two
of
emails.
There was a lot of attachments.
Yeah, 17 attachments. It took a while to get through them.
I couldn't get through all of them,
I
but
didn't
I
get
did
it.
see the letter. All right. All right. So then in terms of the right of way, what are your comments as?
Yeah, well, just to clarify, again, I'm representing the executor.
Yes.
So I'm not actually making any of these
Decisions,
decisions. The
right.
emails happened from me, but I wasn't making the decision. I believe that Paul would be okay with the continuance, but I really don't think Paul and I, I'm directed to say that it's really not needed. As I explained in the letter, respectfully, I don't think that you have authority to require anything other than road frontage. And trying to require more than that creates a lot of problems and a lot of burden on the estate. I'd like to point out, because I don't know if you're aware, that the estate has been open for nearly 5 years now. It's been extremely contentious. There are actually 6 beneficiaries. And so, although I think it's commendable to be seeking consensus and harmony, sometimes that's limited. And the executor is empowered to speak for the estate. And I believe that only the application of the executor is before the DRB, that you're empowered to issue the permit. That would be very helpful to have that information for when we go to the probate court. If the probate court decides for the probate court reasons that a right of way is needed, we would just be able to come back here and ask for that as as whatever the court says. So it certainly doesn't mess anything up in the probate court to have you make a decision now. And I'd also like to point out again, respectfully, that only abutters and owners are parties to this. Only abutters who substantially participate in a hearing have appeal rights, and the owner has appeal rights. So nobody here has any right to appeal this decision, except maybe Charlie, if he spoke up more today than he did the other day. So to sum up, I think that you can and should issue the permit. I think we do meet all the requirements. I don't think the DRB has actually gone through yet the list of things that Karen was pointing out. I think it would be very helpful to resolve the estate. I think it would be fair to the estate and to the beneficiaries as a whole if you did that.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, I'm not opposed to a continuation, but I do think now that it's in the hands of the court, that really is beyond us. And it will get resolved through the court system, which I think is what we were trying to have happen in the beginning. So I'm also not opposed to moving forward. I mean, or to at least walking through the necessary requirements for a subdivision to maybe make a motion on that today. So yeah, I'm not against that.
Excuse me, I'm talking to my board right now, okay? Mary, where are you standing with moving forward with looking through the application from, which includes going through the we're gonna be
Subdivision regulation,
what, excuse me?
the subdivision regulation.
Right, we're going
So
through
that's
this, of course, yeah, the subdivision regulations,
And
but
then
then we're
all the-
also going through
The waivers.
the waivers, thank you. Or would you like to wait to hear whether the probate court has a decision for us?
Well, I didn't get this information because a certain size of file, my email won't accept, so I got two of the same emails, but not including any of these. I thought your, Heather, your information that you provided to us in about access and so forth was very well done, and I appreciated it. It helped me understand things more. And if we don't do a continuance, it doesn't affect the right-of-way issue for Janet, correct?
Correct. She's already filed a motion asking for a right of way in the probate court. So that's happening. You know,
Okay.
we'll be able to address any kind of fairness for the beneficiary and for all the beneficiaries and what Robert Barish wanted and any kind of change of the configuration of that in the probate court. So that would preclude that from being added on later. Yeah.
You would have to come back and what, make
You
an
would have to come
amendment
back.
to your permit,
Yes,
correct?
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd have to warn it again to everybody.
yeah.
Okay, so it would be quite a bit
Okay.
of work.
I wasn't sure if that would
It
require the
would, yes,
DRB.
it would, yeah, right now being a continuance, we just open up again, we'd have, no, all the abutters would have to be notified again. So it'd be a complete redo, notified in places, so it'd be a warned hearing, just
Okay.
to say it is more work.
So just to clarify, like, that's not something that Karen can just like do on her own without DRB approval. That was my question.
It's a question about whether it would be considered a minor or a major change in this.
If it was a minor change, it's something you could do without having to rewarn it and redo it? Hold another hearing?
Give me a minute.
Okay, and while you're looking at that, I'm gonna ask Will what he thinks about, do you wanna admit somebody?
Oh, yeah.
Will, can you give your position?
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable with the continuance, just because there was this application would feel more complete with the right of way in place. And it'd be similar if the lot lines were still being negotiated. So that's my sense, is that continuance isn't harmful. It might be the least, an easier way to proceed. the probate will decide the same on their own. So we won't impact the probate decision. The probate decision would impact, we could decide either way. If the probate says no right of way, then we would approve it. If the probate says right of way, then we could approve it. But it seems incomplete.
Got a number of folks. on the
I have a
list.
question.
Yes,
How long does probate take? How long would it take for
It's pretty
continuance?
slow. It could take
Could you
months.
speak up,
It's
please?
pretty slow. It could take months.
Could take years. I don't mean to interrupt, but it could take years.
I-
Because one might appeal any decision in any court, of course, but go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt.
I do think, I mean, your jurisdictions are different, your jurisdiction here is different from what the probate court can do.
Sure.
And the probate court could approve a subdivision that doesn't comply with your regulations, and you could approve a subdivision that doesn't comply with what the court says needs to happen. So, they're different considerations. I do think it could be helpful when we go back to the probate court, just for us and for the estate, not making things easier for you, but for the estate. If we had that information, if the subdivision otherwise meets the requirements of your regulations, and we can go back to the court and say, it does otherwise meet the regulations, that issue settled. But there's discussion about whether it's fair under the stipulation and the will. Can we just talk about that? I think that could be helpful to us. That's obviously a different consideration than giving notice to abutters and so forth. Although it does look like it, I think it would be a minor subdivision.
Yeah, I'm just having a hard time getting my computer to pop up what I want, but it is, if it's just something simple, like a little bit of a jog here, and so the question, I think you guys have to go really and talk about the waivers and the waiver in regards to whatever that number is that on in front of me, the one that has to do about whether or not
access.
access, and
Yeah.
that's just, that becomes like, I think you have to go through it each way and then decide, and a lot of this piles of paper are more probate related than they are subdivision related.
Yes,
So-
Yes.
So it's really about the
Well-
map and whether the subdivision can get those waivers.
right. So what the,
I know,
yeah,
did you have? Okay,
When you
to come, you were-
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Janet.
Next.
been asking.
So,
several times.
yes, it has been going on.
Mark's got his
Did-
hand
Oh, wait, wait, he-
So, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Janet.
Go.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a strange form, and I don't mean that rudely
Yeah,
at
I
all.
should call
I-
as chair, let me call.
Let me know.
His hands up first, that's why.
That's fine, but let me do the call.
Okay.
otherwise it
If I
gets-
can jump in real quickly after they talk,
See,
the
this-
last two conversations we've had, there's been a lot of participation, which is great, but I think at this point, after they have a chance to talk, I think it would be helpful if we could just focus on the application.
Yes,
And any questions.
agree.
You have for me, and then after that, perhaps we could open it to abutters and then the public.
I agree.
Thank you.
So on my.
No, Mark asked, Mark,
I'm sorry.
Mark was called by Seth, and I'm
I
gonna
thought you
respect
said
that.
Well,
I thought you said no too, and that's why,
No, it's after we
No,
were
I actually
done with
thought
our
I might just-
well, I was seeing this, so then I called Janet, so I'm sorry, I was confused. If you have something to say, can you say it?
Yes, I'd like to.
Thank you.
So much, thank you. I actually, I overspoke during the last hearing, and I want to apologize to the room for that. I've
Mark,
never
can
been
you speak-
accused,
Can you speak?
louder, I'm sorry,
Please.
I've never, oh, you're hearing me. I've never been accused of underspeak, and it's a fault of mine, and I'm well aware of it. I was actually advised not to speak here at all this evening by my prime advisor. I won't identify him, but he's here, okay?
Okay, so thank you.
So, but I want to speak very briefly. At the beginning of the last hearing, you spoke to us about how, and I can't quote you, but I can paraphrase, and I know it was reported, so it can be quoted. But you spoke about how literally at times we wish we had more authority than we do. You said those words. You said, I'm not picking on anything. I'm just trying to clarify.
Mark, that's not, what your conversation is not relevant to what we're here. Mark, it's not relevant. I'm sorry, okay? I'm gonna stop conversation, I'm gonna stop your conversation so that we can move forward with the agenda, which is,
Comment.
no,
Please. You
no,
won't let me speak?
no, no,
This is being recorded, right? I'm not
Yes.
allowed to speak?
no, I get to call it, all right? Sorry.
I apologize if I offended.
No, what you started out was by saying you were told, Mark, I'm asking you not to talk. You said you were advised not to talk, and then you started to try to tell me what I said at the last meeting, and that's not relevant right now. So I'd like to move forward respectfully, okay? And Janet, it has to be quick.
So it is true that this has dragged on a long time and we all would like it to finish. But we'd like to finish it in a way that feels good to everyone. If you approve the subdivision tonight, you are approving a landlocked parcel. And that makes me uncomfortable for the town.
All right, can
That
we leave
makes-
it at that? Thank you. Okay, all right. So we have, thank you, everybody. I want to move forward with this. We have another situation after this hearing, and we have to make a decision whether we are going to continue this hearing or whether we're going to go through the stipulations of the waivers that were asked of us. And that's what's before the DRB. And we have to make that decision, the four of us that are members. So I would like a show of hands who would like to continue this to another, and you can vote twice, you can vote for both, who would like to continue this to a set date into, to let the probate court come back with the issue of the right of way is really what we had been concerned about. Okay, the access of the landlocked parcel, correct? So who would like to continue? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I think we have unanimous vote, and I hear you. I do hear you, and I would be willing to go through the waivers, but I want to speak briefly to you, Heather, that, and executive, you can let them know that it within our purview is the right to look at the lots as at having access. Even if you're asking for that waiver, we're looking at the whole subdivision as a part, not just like a myopic 300 road footage is good enough. It's not that simple. If land is not accessible for logging or development, that's not a valid subdivision, and I would ask you to take it to the environmental court if you didn't agree with us, and that's my opinion. So if I just heard from my board members, they'd like the probate court to give us that answer, and unfortunately, that means some waiting, and I apologize for that.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
So I think the way the continuance would work is you would continue.
Can you
to the
speak
next-
up, Heather?
I'm so sorry. I have this problem a lot. I think the way the continuance would work is you continue to the next month. And I think Karen told me that if it's not resolved then, which it won't be, that at that time you could continue it again, but you can't continue it ahead of time. I don't want to come back. Until, if we're continuing until the probate court has made a decision, I don't want to drive up here. Do you want me to show up on the screen?
I don't believe we have to schedule it for next month.
I don't think we
No.
have to.
We can
Okay.
schedule it for 6 months from now. We can
Okay.
schedule it for 3 months. We could schedule it for 6 months and it could be resolved in 3 months and you could say, can we change that date? Is that possible or no? That's probably
I
not
think you
possible.
have to, I would, if you was thinking 3 months, I would set 3 months versus 6 months.
Right. And so it's not next month. It doesn't have to be month to month. What it has to, but once
date
we have to open a hearing and we can continue it again. And you're saying there's a limit to continuances? Okay, there's no limit.
But we also can, if we know that it hasn't been resolved, like, nobody has to necessarily show up. We can just open it, continue it, and close it.
Yeah,
again.
well, you could all show up on Zoom. You could, because you're representing it's your application and say,
Right.
we ask for continuance for another X amount of months.
Okay.
And we'd be happy to do that. And I'm really apologize that it's as complicated as,
Perhaps two months then?
you want 2 months?
Yeah, that's optimistic, but I'd rather be optimistic than miss an opportunity to come back.
Okay, so in
That's
2 months,
April.
I'll take a motion. Who wants to make a motion?
I'll move to continue to April,
It looks
is
like
it
the 9th.
9th, April 9th.
All right, and we'll give you 7:10. Yeah,
Fine.
second?
Second,
All in favor, raise your hand. Aye, okay, great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hey, Janice? I'm here to replace Seth for this hearing, but I don't want to start getting involved in the village expansion project procedure. Because
Oh, well,
I'm
I
just
thought
using,
I thought you said Janet.
no, Janice, yeah.
Well, I thought you were joining our board.
No, I can't really do that.
Dang.
I am doing a substitution here, so I don't wanna continue that unless necessary. So, but
Well,
I
send
will,
that Up to
yeah.
speed.
yeah, I
Okay.
will bring, I will continue to follow this one, because since I was in it for the beginning, I should continue that procedure. But if I start a new one, then I should stay with it. And I'm on the Village Expansion Steering Committee, so I'd feel a little more comfortable not being part of that decision.
Well, great.
But
We'll see,
yeah, I'll continue.
we'll see you in April.
Oh, yeah, and I'm gonna hang on. I'm still interested, but I don't want to be on the DRB for that decision.
Okay, so, but we'll see you in April for the continuance of
Yes,
this
yeah,
if needed, as you said. Okay.
yes, I'll stick with it because I think that's the proper procedure.
Well, I really appreciate your understanding of the zoning regulations and your support in this hearing. So thank you.
Yeah, and I
Sure
will say,
thing.
look, that one was actually a continuation of a previous one, which I was there for, so, I mean,
Oh,
it's
oh.
really up to you. So there was a beginning before that.
Oh, that was
Oh, okay. Well, I'll stay on.
Oh, that wasn't the hearing, that was to set a date for the hearing.
It was what they called us. What do we call that? We call it a
Review.
site plan
Okay.
review.
Okay,
Okay.
All right. Well, I think
All right.
we are ready. Good timing.
Yeah, no.
Worked hard on that.
we're on.
Welcome, welcome. So our next agenda item is the village expansion project, and we have people here to represent that and talk about that. And you're the one who would like to speak?
And some maps were shared with me.
Yeah,
You have,
I printed them out. I filled out the survey
Okay.
today. I filled out the survey today myself.
Look, it's hard. I'm lost my brain.
Okay,
My husband's been.
thanks.
Karen, I emailed you the handout that I've just handed out. And I also sent it to, Seth. And I also sent Seth the free drawings. It might be easier for all of us just to look at this, although I have large.
Oh,
oh,
to share the
yeah,
screen
actually,
share?
that's
Is there
a
somebody
different,
else who wants to be in?
it's a different computer there.
Would you like me to? I could take that over.
I can email it somewhere else.
I'm not sure what the email for this computer is.
It's on yours. Do you wanna?
Hmm?
Do you wanna? Oh, right, screen share this.
Yeah.
Can you join our meeting?
Probably join the meeting. Yeah,
And then we could ask you to screen share.
yeah. I mean, I need to get the link.
I can also use these, but, and we did last time is that owl could see it. At least decently.
I can hold it up again.
I'm gonna need you to
No,
be
you should
the
be
easel.
able to do this.
I think it's sharing. We would share.
Well, we can, but we don't have the file on this computer, so I have to,
I emailed it.
I have it on my computer, but not on,
Oh.
I don't know what
Do you
that
want me
is.
to email it to that computer?
This is just.
Well, I have to log into my email on that computer.
Doesn't
which I
matter.
guess I could do.
Do people want it up here on the screen? And then will that also allow people on
Wanna
the
try
Zoom
putting
to
it
see
by the-
it?
Can we try it by the owl? If that helps.
Let me just try this and see.
You want a
If
chair?
Just-
you do
It's
that,
okay, I
do
did
it.
this for the select board meeting the other
I
day.
have to admit myself.
Seth, admit,
That doesn't look the design I did.
Oh, were you in
A,
A
B,
or
or C
C?
is the A.
See,
Yeah,
Okay.
this
so
looks
one
A.
is
A.
I didn't like that one.
Okay. Well, you know, that's why we're collecting input, survey input on all of them, yeah.
so now we want Seth to share? Is that what you-
Yeah, it's gonna be easier if Seth can share.
The rights. I've got it right here.
I'll make a host, no, whoops.
I already allowed myself
Oh.
to share.
Oh, good, yeah,
Yes.
there we go. That's our wit tech whiz.
Technology is
They-
really
I think
great.
it's-
All right, speak loud so everybody can hear you, okay?
Yes,
Sandra,
thank
want
you.
to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, my name is Sandy Vitztum. I'm a local architect and I've been volunteering to help this project. I'm acting as a neutral. My primary personal goal is just to help the issue with housing and to help something go through. I have no personal preference about how the project is laid out. Very important point. I hope.
Can you
So-
also tell us what you will be coming for? The DRB, why
Yes.
you're here and what we're
Yes.
gonna be needing to make decisions about?
Yes.
Yes.
I am here tonight as a preliminary informational session and to make sure we're on the same page as far as possible and to predict what's happening over the next couple months so that we can be really well prepared and most efficient with your time. So I've made a little handout to collect my thoughts. I'm representing a citizen committee called the Plainfield Village Expansion Project. And we're preparing to submit an application to you for a planned unit development that includes, it is the kind of planned unit development that creates separate lots. It's not going to be a homeowners association. So, and it's within the village district. At this time, the landowners are Bram Tobin, Erica DaCosta, and Don Knowles.
I'm sorry, who's the last one?
Don Knowles,
Okay.
That KNOLL.
Knowles.
There you go.
Okay,
It is our hope that the town will adopt the project in the coming weeks. If this happens, we will complete the application. We will continue and complete our process on the town's behalf. But because they would be preparing to purchase land and do the project.
So would the town be asking for a PUD from the
So
DRB
right now,
as landowners?
right now, I'm representing the committee. And if the town adopts the project and moves forward with it, then there would be a transition to them being
Owner,
actually the developer, because the
Okay.
owners are Graham, Erica.
and they'll
Don,
stay the,
until after the project's approved. The land can't transact until the permitting is complete. So this is often the case with development, that the developer doesn't purchase the land and become the owner until everything's in place. I hope that makes sense.
so the town would be the applicant eventually.
Eventually,
Okay.
yes, only if they take it over. At that time, the town will need to discuss how they want to manage the project. And I have volunteered to continue until the end of it. As a
Thank you.
volunteer.
thank you.
Well, it's really important to me. So the last time I talked with Karen about schedule was a month ago, and I may have gotten things wrong. So this is my understanding, and feel free to change it, and also feel free to have me work directly with Karen if that's a better use of your time. So first of all, I'm presenting tonight. We intend to submit on March 6th. So by then we will have gone from 3 concepts down to 1 concept. The schematic design will be finished. We will be able to answer all of the questions on this and requirements is the subdivision application. So I believe that on that, we would be submitting a sketch plan application. And it appears that we would also submit at the same time the subdivision application. I do not know if I'm correct on that, but that's what and again, I can work this out separately if you prefer me to. And then, as I understood it, the next hearing date after that would be March 26th. I don't know if you meet twice. a week.
No, we
No.
don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
do you
thought
want us to
so.
talk about that?
Well,
Or
I
do you
would
want to go
really
through it?
like, because I would like to leave here tonight with a sense of the schedule.
Okay,
But as I understand it, this is going to be a combination subdivision PUD because we're subdividing land but it's falling under a PUD.
Yep.
So
Okay.
I've heard.
They actually are seeing, PUDs do use subdivision regulations to make determinations.
Yes, so I've seen the term sketch plan review,
Okay,
subdivision review.
Yep.
And
So-
plat review.
right, so the sketch plan is like you submitting things. And then you need to apply for your application, your subdivision PUD application. And then that goes before a formal hearing.
Okay, it's the subdivision. It's going through hearing number 1.
Right, so
Okay.
the sketch plan is usually kind of like what you did already. You came to us and said, and this again,
Yeah.
this could be considered, but it's not formal enough. Like a sketch plan, you're like, got your single design and you're ready to come before us and you say, here's what we want to apply for,
Yes.
okay?
Oh, it will be
It-
done by the 6th. Yeah.
Right, and so then really you just give us your PUD if I'm correct, subdivision PUD application, correct?
Well, usually the sketch plan is you look at what the plan is and you determine whether it's a minor or major.
Which we could already determine that
Right,
this is
right,
gonna
but
be
you
a
still have to
major.
Do it in. You
Steps?
You still have to do it in steps, like you don't have to warn.
The sketch plan.
As big as you'd have to warn the hearing. So it's like,
It's a pre.
I have a feeling that originally we planned tonight to be the sketch plan
Right.
meeting.
Okay.
And we are right now in the middle of 3 concepts, so I have no single sketch planner.
So the
So
next,
maybe
so
we
the
need
April,
more.
the March, yeah, well, the March meeting is, we meet always on the second month, the second
Wednesday.
Wednesday, so the March would be the 12th. And you would want to,
And we can't warn that ahead by 15 days.
we have,
so sketch plan, you don't have to do by 15 days.
right,
Okay, so let's do on the 12th of March, the sketch plan hearing.
review. It's
Review.
not a hearing,
Here,
okay.
for review.
so just
Thank
call it a
you.
sketch plan review.
And
Thank you.
remember, I have to. This is gonna be under the. Proposed zoning regulation. There's not much change in besides lot size. So we have to use the proposed new
Right,
regulation.
yes,
But there's not much change with the exception of basically lot size.
that's relevant to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so sketch plan review on March 12th. But on the 6th, we could also we could submit the subdivision PUD application.
People have done it that way.
Well, if
Okay.
they
You could do it-
submit it, then we can be warned for the April,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our April,
And I have the
Meeting.
16th wrong. It sounds like it's the 10th from what I heard.
April
No.
9th.
9th.
So
April.
it would be April 9, 4/9,
Okay,
that we would have the subdivision hearing, the
okay,
application hearing, okay?
Yep.
Your application for major subdivision PUD.
okay. And then we would, really, this is my 3rd Penta day. What was the possibility of that happening? I seem to have a time. Okay, okay. Thank you, Arian. And then, so we could continue with the preliminary plat hearing. Right then and there, if that's allowed. We want to finalize the plat by July. But I'm expecting by the time the plat final hearing happens. All of the development questions would be behind us. And it would be, but the plat is very important for establishing where monuments are. And what the surveyor is going out to set for lots. So that they can be set and they can be sold. So that wouldn't happen until after we're really sure the project's going forward. So, and that. I'm hoping that we can get anything that might be appealed done much earlier, so that we can get that resolved. And then that the plat process itself is pretty simple.
Right.
Because at that point, we need to sell the lots pretty quick after that.
So what I hear is that we would have our hearing on April 9th.
Yes,
And if we needed to continue the hearing because there needed to be more information or things that
Mhm.
needed to be worked out and resolved, we would continue it at our May hearing.
okay, which
It would
is
be a
May.
continuance in May. I'll look that up right now. And that would be May 14.
Okay,
But I would have to warn if we were gonna try to do it that way by doing continuances like that, I would need to warn all, like, we're gonna do the preliminary plat, like warn it all, like doing the whole process.
So it
So
would
that-
be each month you would warn.
No, I would warn all the process on the first warning,
Okay.
even though you didn't get to it, so you would continue it, but you wouldn't have to do any rewarning.
So we would, when you submit your application in March,
6th. Yep,
then we would warn April's hearing, May's hearing, even if maybe you said we don't have anything new until June, and then we would have a June, and that we would hope would be your final with your
I
plat.
really hope so too. And if we don't have anything to continue, the June contents could move up to May.
Yeah, if I warrant all the steps in this first one.
And that's the 11th, June 11th,
Okay,
okay?
yes, so just to quickly recap, the March meeting will be the sketch plan review.
Mm-hmm.
The April meeting will be the subdivision hearing and hopefully the preliminary plat review. There's a possibility one or both would be continued. But it could be that they've wrapped up and then whatever, regardless, after that's resolved, the next meeting would be the final hearing. Done. Can go back and get the project, the contract documents finished. And the state permits complete, and then come back for the final plat review. Which I'm hoping will be sometime in July.
Now, remember that there's then, they don't write the decision until August. July.
Oh, that's
August,
right, we
July,
can't,
August, and then people have 30 days to appeal that, so we're now talking, you're almost into September, so it would be good if you could
Your final,
have if you went for having pretty much everything settled by June and the decision made, then you would
That's
write
when
it
you-
for July, and that
That's-
still gets you to August.
okay, so we need to, we're aiming to get the final decision. Cause you need 1 month to write your decision and have it approved, and then it goes into the appeal period, right? So my goal would be to have that in the June hearing.
yes,
And what would you call that meeting?
final plat is what I think, right?
Well, we won't have the
Final plat,
money.
June,
I'm gonna warn at the very beginning, all of the steps.
Okay,
So we could just continue.
good. Then we can focus tonight
Right.
on the important things, but I'm glad that we're discussing this.
But you need
Thank
to
you.
be sure to have, because we're having a post thing between March 6th and April 9th. And we have to get in the newspaper and stuff, you and I will need to like really work together, really
We're
right off,
happy to do it.
okay?
Okay. All right, so now I'd like to move on to a short description of the project. This project is located in the Village District. I've already discussed it being kind of a joint subdivision and PUD application. We expect the common areas will continue to be owned by the town, but we can't have that discussion yet with the town. That will happen in March, and by the time we're coming to you, we will know what the plan is for common areas. Your guidelines for PUDs describe 4 possibilities: a town, a nonprofit, personal, private ownership, and something else. Okay. The project serves several town planned goals and strategies. I won't go into them tonight, but there's like 10 that it satisfies, which is great. The project serves several goals of the ordinance as well, which is encouraging compact pedestrian development with shared facilities and infrastructure to provide housing in a cost-effective manner. clustering housing to maximize open space, and conserving and otherwise leaving open more than 50% of the property's area. The committee has been very careful not to form our own opinions about what should happen with the land. And we have been assuming and trying to figure out budgeting that it would be just a simple subdivision. We were surprised to see that all of the groups by the second round had identified this important goal of clustering housing to maximize common space and open space. So in the first round, we had at least 2 traditional subdivisions. But as the group worked through that, this became really important. So we are proposing tiny lots that is allowed to be smaller than 1/10 of an acre as part of a PUD, in my understanding. So we have lots shown down to 1/20 of an acre, which is
Say the last thing.
1/20 of an acre, which is about 40 by 45 square feet in a tiny cluster. So we also didn't know if people would want mixed use on the project. There's a very specific definition of mixed use. 40% of the building or that individual project has to be residential. So uses that were suggested by the group were a cafe or coffee shop, a laundromat, and community space for activities like play groups for kids and yoga. So we are not worrying about the buildings, but the idea is to set aside space and parallel start thinking about what those might look like and look for a developer for them. I would like to point out that we already have commitments for 5 duplexes and 5, I think, single-family homes. So 5 duplexes from Habitat for Humanity. They're ready to go as soon as they get the land. And downstreet, at their pace that they can manage, because they build 7 projects a year. And downstreet, so this is great. With open space, at least half of the 23.9 acres will be set aside for the uses that are defined by the ordinance. We don't propose going outside of those uses. And we will, okay, let's now look at the projects, the big thing. So I needed to start drafting these from the models. The models were very exciting, and I kind of wish that we had some tonight. But they were just wonderful collections of the building blocks and the paper lots that we work with. So this is concept A. And what you see here, what they all have a mix of lot sizes. And I have to point out that PUDs are more about units, not about lots. They're the density bonus is for units. The lots are not saying, this drawing is not saying how many buildings go on each lot. That would have to be somehow figured out if we were to do that. To get to 67 is maximum that would be allowed
By,
by the PUD bonus.
okay.
We have been thinking if it were a conventional subdivision, it would be more like 40 lots. But the PUD bonus lets us increase the number of units.
Can I just ask
Yeah,
Karen a question? I thought that when we talked about PUDs before, that was not for individual lots, that was, or were not individually owned. I'm just,
No, you can do both.
you can do both. Okay, great.
so we're looking at this first one and then, but I'll explain as I go the common themes. The biggest difference is how the roads are made over the site. The lot constrictions, they all had a kind of general use of the land. So for the general use of the land, the east side makes more sense to leave open, as well as the south, the bottom on the page. East is on the right, south on the bottom. And the far west the left side of the page has the steep cliff, which needs to be conserved. And, in other words, protected with a buffer, and it has view lots. And the groups generally agreed that they would like those to be houses that, the kind of larger lots. And that is one of the questions in the survey that we have going right now. And we also, I should point out in the survey, are asking about confirming how much people want tiny houses or tiny lots, and kind of what might be the proportion. So many of the groups wanted a mix of lot sizes. And then also wanted to protect the hill that is, can you put, at least for the people in the room, the hill is that area inside the bottom loop. Yeah. There's a lot of concern from everybody involved about trying to be as respectful as possible to the existing residences on East Hill Road. All of these concepts include an access road to East Hill. It is necessary for emergency services. We cannot get a road at a low enough slope from Main Street. Our expectation is that most traffic will go through Main Street. You'll see in a couple of designs that would be less likely, but that has been our, not knowing how the design was going, that was our expectation. But we absolutely need to have the road, and we've already started talking with A&R, Natural Resources at the state level and the federal, because it's under federal jurisdiction, what we would be allowed for the fire road. And we are also talking with fire safety. So we're trying to help get a compromise. And I am meeting with those residents tomorrow to talk about it further. We also want to be very respectful of Alicia and Phil, who live in the kind of missing bit up there at the top.
Yeah.
They're going to be directly impacted, and it's a high priority of the committee to figure out how we can accommodate their needs. And all of the drawings here show a buffer around the house. And Don Knowles what a gentleman, he has offered to work with us to get this driveway up. It's a critical element to the design for getting our wastewater off the site without a pump station. So there's a diagonal in the upper left where there's right now a trailer. And on that lot would be at most a driveway to serving at most 3 residences.
This driveway you're talking about right here?
Yes.
So that is not a walking path, that is a road.
Well, it could be a driveway. It doesn't have to be, but we have to have a 20-foot right of way to get the utilities down.
Okay,
And the idea is to have a walking path down.
Yeah.
It could double as a driveway for a maximum of 3 houses. So do you see what I mean? There
Yeah.
would be a driveway and like
well, I see
something
that,
to keep traffic.
these houses over here.
Yeah, so that is critical to the project for getting utilities down. We could get them down another way, but it will need a pump station, which costs $100,000. So getting that in, and the idea is that would become the primary path down to the village. And if there is a driveway, also people would just walk over the driveway. It would be a public right-of-way driveway.
Can I ask you about this
Mhm.
slope? Is it, 'cause
Yeah.
in our regs, we have driveway slopes are limited to like 12 or 15%
That is-
grade over.
Yep, and that's actually an access road. Is a higher category than a driveway, because it's the road for all the families coming up. And it is a 15% road. We've
Great.
talked to the highway department about this. And as long as the East Hill Road access goes in, they are okay with that.
Okay.
But, and there are, I mean, for instance, Gray Road is much steeper than 15%.
Yeah.
So, national standards for the fire access road is 5%. There are very few roads in Vermont that are 5%.
This one would meet,
Yes.
Okay.
So we're really trying hard to make sure that these buildings are safe. Okay, so So those are the aspects that are shared by all of the designs. And all three concepts decided to leave the hill, at least part of it, open. So this first design has a community area right where it's red at the kind of top of the hill coming up from Main Street. And the idea would be that there would be community open space to the extent with functions that are allowed by the state in that area. It's been suggested to have a community garden with ways to get food to people, a farm stand or something. The farm stand would be outside of the green space. And possibly an orchard, silviculture and fruit productions are two allowed uses. And then all of the designs, the concepts talk about some level of pedestrian passage all the way through and around the site. So this one had kind of the least east-west, left-right direction, pedestrian passage. If we could, oh, and then the other big question is this loop around the bottom of the hill. Should it be continuous? Maybe it's just one way. How will that work? In this project, at this scale, you can't see my writing over the area between the community mixed use and the hill. There's a question of whether that road, it's where all the writing is on top of the road. That road doesn't have to be built. It would bring more traffic around the hill if the road, but it would let pedestrians walk through. So we've asked, that's in our questionnaire, and we should know by Sunday afternoon what people think about connecting roads. So the question in general is, do you make one long loopy road that maximizes pedestrians being able to get around without having to cross the street? Or do you make these connecting roads that would relieve traffic off of the loops? All right, the
Like
next,
these here.
yeah, and the next slide is concept B. So this one is showing no road around the bottom of the hill. And it's an ingenious proposal. One I could have never guessed, but what it does is it makes a long loop. And they really I wish I brought some images of tiny villages, clusters, that the houses are accessed by a road that an emergency truck could get through if it had to, but they're pedestrian for the most part. And they're places for bicycles and people to walk, and the front porches can be very close to them. So that whole area, kind of to the left of the loop there, would be this dense, tiny house neighborhood. And the group chose that end because it's closest to the village and would be easiest to get down. I should also point out, all three concepts are talking about some kind of public path from the left end of that loop down to Creamery Street. And Heidi is the abutter below this property where the big cliff is making a C shape. She has generously offered to let us connect down over her land where the slope isn't quite as steep to get down.
Maybe that green line, are you thinking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
your eyes are better than mine looking at the screen.
Well, I'm looking at the paper.
So that's exciting. So we would have a whole network of pedestrian paths. And this one is really cool because you could get from the hill to the conserved area without having to cross a road. All right, the next concept C is showing the possibility of not having the connecting road on the right-hand side of the big loop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and this one also shows a nature trail through the conservation area, which will immediately
Oh.
set up flags with some groups at the state. And I've already been talking, George is our local expert, he's amazing. And we've been talking about what to do. So if something like that goes through, I also need to talk to the DRB about how do we phase the common space improvements? Because we don't have budgeted right now, for instance, 1/4 mile of boardwalk, which is probably what would need to be done. And we have to figure, we want to make what the community desires come true. But this is a lot of landscaping. So we have to, we're just beginning to shift and think about how to make this happen. Because part of the DRB application is showing that it's financially feasible and that it's not just gonna get the roads built and then the land just turns into weeds, right? That's not acceptable. So we're working on that plan as of Saturday. How do we get this to actually work? To realize the dreams that people had on Saturday. Now that we know what they are, and so this is a magnificent idea of parents really making the whole framework of the project and the housing fitting in. This one is showing a dense cluster on the right-hand side of the hill. Again, we don't know what the community is going to say of how much housing they want at the end of the day. So we're waiting to hear on that. If that were to happen, we would be absolutely sure to have a really good buffer against East Hill so that they're not looking at a whole lot of new houses right there. So.
That's what
we're-
those green circles are.
Those
Trees.
are my trees.
Okay.
Adobe Acrobat trees. So, so what we are trying to do as we're shifting into the next phase is figuring out how to balance the vision, which is getting clearer and clearer from the community, how to facilitate it, how to figure out how the budget's gonna work, how time can be used as a tool. And then now that we have something specific, what will make this comfortable for the abutters?
Thank you.
Well, it's really, this is the key part of the project.
So one of the right of ways to get to this property is through, the old Bailey house next, the driveway.
Where is the?
I don't know what the old Bailey.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm from.
Which one, which one is the
Somehow.
Old Bailey?
Why-
I'm trying to think which ones are older. Do you
So
mean
the
Alicia
one
and
that you're
Phil's?
protecting, who's that person?
In the middle, the lot that's been,
That white, yeah,
yeah, at the top?
yeah,
that's
right
That's
Phil
where
and
Alicia and Phil live
Alicia.
now. Is that the Bailey house?
yes.
Okay.
I
It's
think
just
of
a
it as the
magnificent
Southgate
property.
house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, it is.
well, that, well, you know. Historically, it's the Bailey.
Mhm.
So there is a right of way up their driveway.
Oh,
Access
right.
these properties.
that's in favor that we're trying not to use it. And, at this point, we're trying to make things as comfortable as possible for Alicia.
And sort of that's why you're making this one to the left, which
Well-
is where the
Yes,
walking
yeah,
versus
yes.
small driveway.
yes,
I have a-
I mean, just because I happen to know there's a right of way there.
yes,
And,
there is,
and so,
yeah,
I mean, it
We-
would be very unpleasant if I was.
yeah.
Right,
I
okay.
mean, this whole thing has been really hard for Alicia and Phil. And, I'm trying to do as much as I can to make this acceptable. They're wonderful people, and there's no reason to ruin people's lives.
And so with the small lot that's to their left that has the mobile home on it, would that become part of?
It would become part of the project. I don't know how much at liberty I am to talk about, and I'm not part of the negotiations.
I'm just.
But I can say there were rumors that Mr. Jarvis, the owner of the trailer, would be displaced, and that's absolutely not true. So, I just want to say we're trying to proceed as carefully as possible and thoughtfully as possible.
When you came before us before, Arian, you said you were proposing one lot of Bram's 3 lots, or is this all 3 of
This is
Bram's
all
lots?
freeze.
So now it is all 3, including all 3.
Wasn't clear at the time exactly how things were gonna unfold. And they are, at least in conversation and date, they would like to sell the whole thing.
Well, and
Could you
it seems to make sense.
Repeat the end,
Yeah, it
please.
wasn't clear at the time when I came to present sort of exactly how that was gonna unfold. That was quite a few months ago, and thank goodness we've learned a few things in that period of time. But they're explicitly interested in selling the whole thing. And it does make sense because we really do need to connect back to East Hill Road in order to have appropriate provision of emergency services.
And also you can densely cluster housing and still have with a PUD, have your open spaces.
That
Yeah.
does help with
Yeah,
open
it helps with
space,
that a lot.
but honestly, we couldn't do this project without the East Hill access.
Right,
So-
I understand because of the
Yeah.
slope of that hill.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right.
Good, thanks.
And I had a really good discussion with someone who had looked at this property earlier, and he had been advised to not try to do this road. But I want to express that there seems to be a way to compromise to get between all of the different considerations of state agencies to get the road in. So knock on wood, we have to.
You mean
continue.
both of them, the Main Street and the East Hill, which
The
road?
Main Street's not a permitting issue as far as. I
The
know.
East Hill one is
Yeah.
by
Well,
the town,
because-
by the state, you're
Yeah,
saying.
and I can't go into too many
Okay.
details right now about that. But I wanna say knock on wood, I might actually touch the floor on that one. I think we've got a compromise. I really hope that we have a compromise working. And we're gonna meet as soon as we meet with fire safety and the fire department one more time. We're gonna then talk to this other agency and make sure that we're all on the same. We don't wanna push one part of this project forward while there's something that's unresolved that could cause our progress to go back. It's really important in community projects to move linearly so that everyone is as close to being on the same page as possible. How much time do I have left? I hope it's not negative.
We didn't
We don't
allot
really
you
have
a
it.
specific amount of time.
Well, what I have left to discuss are two, I think, brief topics, and then I have some questions for you. First of all, I want to assure the board that the standards that you look at, drainage, stormwater, erosion control, utilities and emergency services are all being examined and priced out. They have been since December. So we are triggering state permits for all of these. And that's one reason why it's really important to know what the town wants early. Because it would be expensive to design something for the state permit and then have to change it. Because they need everything down to like, the individual pipes. So, because we are focused on affordable housing, at this time, we do not think it is at all feasible to bury utilities, by power. Obviously, the water is gonna be buried, but power lines, at this point, what we've talked about with GMP is above ground lines and poles. Within the clusters of tiny houses, that would be an unattractive thing to have poles in there. So I'm trying to figure out how to get those underground inside the clusters of tiny houses. If some people were hoping just for scattered tiny houses, then it would probably be all above ground. But I know that your ordinance asks for wherever possible that power lines be buried. And at this point, it's just not feasible because the affordable, from our point of view, because the affordability is really key. I'm talking to people who have been unhoused by the flood, and they may only be able to afford a yurt to live on, at least for a while. And to pay for the luxury of underground utilities seems a little bit, but I don't want to say frivolous because I know it's a common good to not be looking at power poles. But that is something I would like to discuss when we come on March 6th. And at this point, I'm not showing them underground. And I guess I should be asking for that. I would love to get some direction on that. And it may be that you can't give me any direction until I have budget numbers and that you can demonstrate this. So maybe we do need to hold it until your March meeting. But, believe me, it's like a delicate balance of everything involved to make this project happen. And I'm trying to figure that balance out as well. Okay, the other issue is traffic. We have from the beginning assumed there would be at least a small traffic study as part of this project. We don't know how many units, and therefore how many cars in an area that has been a field for over 100 years. So, I do know that the traffic study will show, because of the declining population along Great Brook, it will show a relatively small net gain. And it will probably show not that much impact on East Hill as long as there's a connector road. There will be more impact on East Hill if that connector road is not built, like in Concept C. Because if you think about it, if you live on the east side of the project and you want to go to Main Street to the village, which is the quicker way to go? Like if you have to go all the way around that loop, I would be more likely to go out to East Hill. So, then Main Street, we have talked with the highway department and they don't foresee problems with extra traffic on Main Street. And the site distances have been checked for safety. But we're happy to do that, and my expectation is you would like one, but if you want to say no, I'm happy, so.
I think a traffic study would be important for the community who is, because traffic increase is important, affects people. And I think you can show probably with your numbers of like how many houses we're losing right in the village. And also, I don't know about, yeah, and along the brook, which is in, they come through the village, right? So we can just transfer that traffic up, to the top of Main Street instead of the bottom of Main Street. I think demonstrating the number of increase in the village, which we would consider both sides, important to consider.
Yeah, great. Check mark on that.
I would agree with that.
Okay, I think we'll all be better.
It's for PR
Yes,
purpose.
well,
I think that if I lived in the village, I would want to know. And I live on the edge of the village. I don't live right in the village, so.
peace of mind.
Lights is another big one I'm sure you're gonna go through.
Well, we are trying to design the houses towards the village per the community workshop as the places that if it would be hard to own a house and a car that you could live and you could get down to public transportation. It's important to point out, it's not shown on this, but right across the street from where that public path connects to Main Street is the park and ride.
Yeah.
So it's a key way for people who don't have a car to be able to have a job.
Where to get to the co-op?
Or now to get to the co-op. Yes,
Well, no,
Get to the
it's
co-op.
not there anymore.
Well, that's like.
Right.
The
Yeah.
co-op
Yeah.
is to get a bus to the
Oh,
co-op,
the bus to the co-op.
to the,
Okay,
to the co-op, to get to the new where the new location of
the
the
new
co-op.
location.
so now I have 5 questions. And then I would be happy to answer questions. And there several people here from the committee too would be happy to help me. So we are going to need to merge 2 existing parcels before we subdivide. For Karen especially, how will that merge parcel
Excuse me.
mix into our whole warning list?
How about a boundary line adjustment?
You have to own one of them first, maybe? I don't
Oh,
know.
it's not all 3 of Bram's lots?
So, I
No.
mean,
Oh, okay.
Oh, there.
You can
3
actually
Ramshaw-
have a boundary line adjustment between a butters.
So Mr. Knowles' lot. So,
He can agree to a boundary line adjustment.
what,
it depends how big the boundary, how big the boundary line adjustment would be.
okay,
Cause if it's over, well, I don't know, cause
I
we
don't
went
know.
down to 10th acre, so boundary line adjustment's gonna, oh, God, trigger.
so I'm just trying to point out every
Let
possible
me think,
thing I
I'll
thought.
think about that.
So what would be not good is for the town to buy both parcels and then have a 2-month delay to merge the parcels. Because they have to, I believe, and I asked the lawyer about this today, but I believe that you have to merge them before you can subdivide them.
I would think that makes sense,
They're two different owners.
They're two different owners.
but then it'll become one owner.
Yeah, but if the
Well, I
next
think
owner
there's-
buys it, don't you just have to write a deed that has as one parcel?
I just don't know.
I think
So I want to
I
make
think
sure
that's the
that we're
answer, but,
thinking
I
about,
mean,
I want to make sure that we're allowing time.
we'll
to get
we'll
that.
think about it, yeah.
Okay. And then, actually, we've already talked about number 2. So, I just want to be clear that the preliminary plat hearing will have to be before the town owns the land.
Before what?
The town owns the land.
So the
And-
applicant would be
The
Well,
landowners.
landowners, I mean,
Correct.
the owners, and then the applicant will be whatever
Right,
entity that you decide, or you have the owners be the applicant.
I think that.
Applicant doesn't
the
have to be
owner-
the owners.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be the owners, the applicant.
so that's what my understanding is that the committee can function as the applicant. But I
You
just,
need to have an agreement with the owners to say it's okay for you to be the applicant.
absolutely. Yep, and then I just want to make sure that with the plat process, it also doesn't trigger another month or 2 of waiting. All right, since a number of our new lots will be tiny, between a 20th of an acre and a 10th of an acre is what we're calling tiny. We may not be able to meet lot frontage requirements for those lots.
Then that's when you ask for the deviation.
So I just want to warn you that a waiver is coming.
A variance, wouldn't
In
we
a
call
PD
it?
In a PUD, they call it a
The deed?
I thought it was a waiver, but
well, this,
I don't.
this is where waiver and deviation are. Like, if I remember reading the PUD, they talked about you had to ask for, it's in the new regulations, you have to. read
Oh.
The new 600-page regulation.
Yeah, right.
We'll talk about the difference between asking for the waiver, whether we're calling it a waiver or deviation from the regulation. Yes, you're gonna have to ask for whatever that is, as part of the process.
Yeah, because that doesn't have to be a separate process. It can be,
No, it's like, just when they're asking for the waiver
Yep.
for the subdivision on
Yep.
that, yeah, other one.
The next one is the above ground utilities question versus buried utilities. I would love some guidance on that tonight because it requires a room for a trench. We're following the 50-foot right of way rule. So my assumption is it will fit within the 50, whether we have, but the water and power can't be in the same trench. So they have distance requirements. But it definitely will affect our stormwater layout and drainage layout. So, and that's happening intensely for the next 2 weeks. So I would like some guidance on that if possible. And the last question is that it's highly likely that the sale of lots will not be able to that this is the question of developing what you folks call formal green spaces, which is a great term versus natural green spaces. So, and I mean, like, this drawing, for instance, shows a green in the middle, a really good sized green with a possible playground. That is going to cost something to make. And we wouldn't want it to end in a weeds because nobody took ownership of it. But we are just beginning to think, how will that get budgeted and how would that get built? So I know there's an obligation to have a plan for that. But
In a
grants,
PUD, right?
but grants take a long time. And we're really trying to get housing going so that people can occupy land this winter. Start foundations next spring. If the project can't go, it can't go, but it's hard to say to people who are unhoused right now. So I just like we can apply for grants. We may even get answers on the grants before July, but we certainly wouldn't have answers in April.
I was under the assumption that you can have a proposed plan of target dates. Like, like the development target date, so like, if you think, whatever one you get, but you think that it's maybe 3 years out to get the plan for whatever, you would put that in your target date timeline, because isn't there a timeline somewhere?
It's been a while since I
This
looked at
is a
the
really big
PUD.
thing that we.
And I
town
think the
doesn't get.
DRB can stipulate timelines too, I think. We could look.
So it's my hope that the common areas like that green. And even if there's a little area, like, well, the green is a really good example. That they would stay in town ownership. Because they will be more public for everybody to use, even non-residents.
Like
When
the
the-
rec fields.
Right, when that becomes a part of a homeowners association, it takes on a private nature. And people will say, hey, I saw you drop a cigarette butt right there, get off our land.
Right.
And that's not public.
Right.
So I think, this is tricky. We
Well, what-
wanna work on this, but
Yeah.
this is another part of our puzzle.
As a
We're-
part of the town
Oh.
ownership, you know, like we have a recreation committee, now it's called the Arts and Recreation Committee, that's a volunteer board like so many of our town boards, and people serve on it and they maintain the rec field. So maybe there needs to be a village expansion, whatever you want to call this new community of housing, a committee that's the, you know, grounds, you know, the recreation and fields and, you know, whatever,
Right.
the natural beauty committee or whatever, that would be a volunteer board that most likely members from you can even stipulate it has to be from residents of the village,
Right,
you know, and then they would be responsible and they would budget it in the town plan and they would maintain it and they would hire somebody to mow it, just like the cemetery commission does, you know?
so we haven't been able to talk about it until now because we haven't seen it.
Right.
And so it's very exciting that we now have the beginning of the idea. I would love to do that. But
think
for
that would be
instance, some of the trails might be built by the Youth Conservation Corps. It would be a great project.
Well, we also have the Plainfield Conservation Commission that does, right? And they could take on, or
Yep.
there could be a village expansion, neighborhood subcommittee of the Conservation Commission that's involved in helping finding grants to
Yeah.
build those trails.
I
things
think
like
it could
that.
be really fun, but part of it is the idea that that may take some time to actually get to the point where people are enjoying the use of the trails.
I'm sure.
Particularly down, I don't wanna call it a cliff, but the steep hillside. Because you wouldn't want people just walking up and down and causing erosion. There need to be water bars and probably stone steps in places. So,
The deer and the moose already walk up. and
right,
down.
and our committee's not I think that the committees that already exist in Plainfield would be better equipped to at least lead the design of those. So,
Maybe your new committees.
be part of the committees, whatever.
Right, right,
We
right.
need to figure this out. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah, well, I
exciting.
think
It's really
great.
exciting.
That's exciting. It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just to sort of bring that, so in some of those instances, it seems like we may be asking for some staging of how they actually occur with certain periods of time. And it seems like that is not of a huge concern to the committee.
No,
Okay,
I,
great.
I think setting out a timeline that you think is meetable is a good idea, because of course,
Thank you.
especially with like a limited budget that you have, you know?
We're really focused on getting lots occupiable. So that's when we've been budgeting, we've been really thinking about that. And we honestly didn't know how much public space, maybe people didn't care. I mean, a common developer would just make the whole thing lots.
What, you know, you asked our opinions on things and,
Yes.
you know, I know the state's gonna require drainage and stormwater and erosion
Yes.
control, but I would hope that maybe you guys would be innovative in some of that, like they did here in the local park downtown where you have like planted areas that slow down water and fill up instead of just a drainage that runs the water faster down the hill to the Winooski.
Yeah.
You know, so using more, you know, like erosion design that might be more like permeable surfaces that,
Mhm.
or wetlands or, reed marshes and things like that, because that also adds to the natural beauty of the environment. Instead of just like, oh, he's got to funnel all this water, which is very traditional and what most people are still doing, just dig the ditch deeper, fill it with gravel and head it down to the
Channelize
river.
it.
So I mean, that's something the DRB does have a right to make those suggestions. So I'm making those now, if you can find some
We're,
kind
we're
of,
absolutely on board. We have Nico Rubin, who is
Great.
fantastic and is already working on planting plans. And we have Paul Boiser, the engineer, and that's actually one of his specialties.
so
So,
great.
so we
It would be
definitely,
lovely to see those living systems. And I know it's probably, it's like even waste runoff can become like aquatic systems that walk along pathways
Yep.
that attract birds and pollinators and things like that. So
yes. Thank you.
I just wanna make sure that the East Hill extension, when people come out, that they're not blinding the people across the road where the entrance is.
Right,
There's a house right over there.
right.
That's a good point.
I mean, seriously, because that's one of the reasons
That's
why
wonderful.
I supported having, more involvement with abutters with, access driveways, because before it was just the road crew and, someone across the street now has someone glaring in their living room, so to make
Yeah.
sure that when you're.
Yeah.
I will talk, I don't know if that's George's house.
I think that is.
I've got to talk to George and Rose about that. I'm like looking at this because I've been so focused on other criteria for exactly where the road goes. From trying to keep it away from the Hosfords as much as possible and intersecting East Hill perpendicularly and avoiding wet areas as much as humanly possible, because the Corps of Engineers looks at every square foot. So let me add that to the mix. This is a delicate balance.
Right, and
This
that-
road is a delicate balance.
right, and that road that goes down to the village, that's across from the town.
That property's not occupied right now. No, it's a little, that's the one,
I can't hear you, Aaron.
there's, the property that's across from that right now has been abandoned for some period of time. Where that road comes down.
Right here.
Yeah,
That is literally the only place it can come down. It's actually if this helps at all, that's the location of the old farm road. The old access up onto the meadow.
I mean, is that the house there's a house behind? Yes, okay.
So that might help.
They're supposed to tear that.
They're
road
supposed-
down.
yeah,
I
they're
think
supposed to tear
that
down.
house is slated for tear down at some point, and who knows? I just know
They're
it's not,
theoretically supposed to tear it down.
yeah.
So what's the difference in A, B, and C? In terms of square footage of road?
We haven't calculated, we just got this 2 days ago and I've been
Okay.
working on the DRB meeting since. And actually, yeah, well, I'm not gonna bother about it. I asked my draftsman to start calculating that. But the roads are quite different in their linear length
That,
and.
I'd
and
love to
that-
see an overlay of the three on top of each
Like
other.
really fast.
So right now, we're still in this comment and feedback situation where people can decide do they like, which of the connector roads? Connector roads being that loop around the bottom of the hill and the section like on the right-hand side. So, but I can't tell you what the exact linear feet
I
are
was just,
yet.
I was just curious, because I would think that would make a significant difference in the cost of the.
The roads are $500 a linear foot.
Okay.
So, yes,
Say we had a conversation.
all right. I'm gonna ask about the utility
Yeah.
question one more time before.
I was gonna mention that, I mean, from my perspective, I do
Just
think that the
visually
cost
helping
concern
people.
is a reasonable concern. If you're already talking to JMP about that, if they could provide some, like, estimates of the difference, if they would provide that information, I think that would be helpful information to add to the conversation, so we know, like, what does that mean in the cost difference between undergrounding and keeping them above the ground?
And then, like, I don't know, my question is what sources are out there that can support burying those you know, where are there grants or where is there funding? Is there funding?
Well-
If there's not, you know, that's also important. There's no funding out there to bury power lines. That's why we still have all these towers around.
I think it would be on the
everywhere, you know?
utility for that, you know, in like fire prone areas, there's certainly funding for undergrounding measures, but
Obviously, no.
not enough, no, certainly not enough even for tree maintenance. But
Right.
anyhow, I'm just not sure that there is funding for like a neighborhood to beautification to do that.
USDA community facilities may be a source.
Oh, that's interesting.
Thank
I've
you.
been concerned about light pollution.
Yeah, that's what I was also saying, light
Okay,
blue.
thank you.
And I really feel like, you know, I've seen it in the village, so many people putting lights on their house that don't go out at night. And we can, as a DRB, regulate that lights have to go out at certain times, like with the health center, that's been a big issue. And we even say downward facing lights and people, you know, poor Karen, she becomes the enforcer of lights. You know, and I can complain for 1 minute. I live on the river and across in Martin's Meadow, people put backyard lights that shine onto the rec field road, even into my yard through the woods. So lighting and choice of lighting is, and I know you don't have, I think we could make requirements
That would be good.
in the development of it, like people have to use LED lights, they have to be downward facing
Right,
lights.
sharp cutoff.
Yeah, that they, and that if there's street lights, there might be like dim times.
I should
You
actually
know,
talk
things
about the
like that.
streetlights. We have been assuming no streetlights.
Great.
Because most of Plainfield. is
I
not-
think some people need streetlights, so just, you know, maybe sidewalk lights that are low and dim. You know, like that illuminate the sidewalk, but
Bollards.
not the sky above it.
But the
you
problem
know?
with bollards is they tend to get covered up with snow.
Yeah,
And if they're by the road, they tend to be.
and then the
I
plowing
mean,
and
that
stuff.
actually would be good for
Right.
that one
The
because.
lights on the bridge
no-
are wonderful.
Yeah, the lights on the bridge are wonderful. Yeah, they illuminate and they don't glare. So I really think that's something the DRB is very concerned about in development.
I do think that there is a need for some lighting for safety, you know, that's, I mean, I
For
moved to.
pedestrians.
Yeah, because like I moved down to Route 2 and because town of Plainfield ends it out before outer space, there's no street lamp to Maple Fields, and like, so people are walking in nighttime in the dark with no sidewalks. And it's very dangerous, like in that little section of land. So I think there should be some sort of lighting, you know, so people can.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that public path seems like a priority for lighting, just for safety.
definitely,
Uh,
yeah.
Security as well as your foot not slipping on something in the winter.
But you don't need to be as bright as the health center.
Well, and I wouldn't want to have lights in Alicia and Phil's house
Right.
all night.
Yeah, again, there,
They
you
should
can
see
light
those.
spaces, even like the houses, you can require, as the town can require that specific kind of lightings for cluster housing that
Yeah.
is unobtrusive, but still illuminates spaces for people to move, you know?
Okay.
I know it's out there.
Yep, I know it is. It's definitely up there.
We just happen to go for the floodlights. Yeah, did you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to say that there's lighting on the Goddard campus along the trail. Look, a specific way that we might look at.
They're like high enough not to get buried in the snow but
But, you know, along all the walking paths,
oh, great, thank you.
as you drive on 214.
Oh, you see them, that's nice lighting even in the winter. And some of them are up higher and they never seem to glare. That's right.
And they were like, when I used to run all the time, we used to run on guard there and it like, you know, it made it a lot safer for students, I think, to get from up to the library and stuff.
Yeah.
Originally is why the lighting was there. but
And
now
lighting
it's-
is a safety issue in cluster housing too, I think. you know.
Oh, if people are walking, that's how they get to their home if they're
Yeah.
trying to get home after dark.
Yeah.
One thing for that might be, having the owners install it, you know, that they're responsible for getting a certain number of foot candles on the path in front of their house.
Yes,
So
Yeah.
that we don't have to, it's not a community
Yeah.
cost.
yeah, but it's a part of the design.
Right, for
and-
tiny lots, it's really easy, because the house is so close, you don't have to pay for a conduit out into the landscape.
Yeah.
Okay, So thank you so much for answering my questions. I really appreciate it. And I'm ready to answer questions that people may have.
Oh, power, heating, are you having, like, are that you gonna be, is that individuals?
Right now, yes. And
And-
it would be lovely to have community facilities. but
Like
we don't have
solar?
the bandwidth to,
Okay.
to, um, to budget for that and to design it.
I would say though, it did come up in the design workshop, and the head of the design workshop, Bob Atchison, who is our one-man energy guru, was saying that if we're trenching for some of the water, that we could put some conduit in there for a ground-based geothermal heat loop. Now, that doesn't, it's appealing because the marginal cost would be very small. Whether the full thing would get built out is hard to say definitively. So it's an interesting consideration and not one that we have to necessarily finalize right now, but it's a compelling case that the marginal cost is really not that much. when
Well,
you're
and I
digging
do-
all the holes.
And I
Yeah.
do know that in our subdivision regulations, they do talk about renewables and use of renewables and so, like, if even in your long-term plan, you said, we're leaving this area over here in consideration for solar panels that could be developed, and think of your, like, how would you, that power line that would, if you're doing, underground power lines or power lines
Well, you
to,
can't put solar panels in wetlands.
You can't
So-
put solar panels.
in
what?
wetlands.
Wetlands,
So
right.
I.
It would be rooftops then.
I am a big fan of rooftops,
Yeah.
and also over parking spaces.
Yes.
So the tiny house clusters very well could have like a pavilion for putting cars underneath, like a carport.
And energy.
It'd be a
efficient-
great place to put.
Yeah.
But, what I'm hearing from this is at least allow room in the drawings to trench in the future. And that's easy. It's just beyond my personal bandwidth at this point.
Yeah.
I would love to have a group heating design, but I can tell you that for tiny houses, they don't need much heat.
Right.
I was at one today and a little tiny wood stove, this big, like a tiny little guy, heats the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense for that person to spend, when they're trying to build an affordable house, another $2,000 to hook up to a community system that may not work.
So for that size house, electric is also a potential, and there are a lot of rebates for now.
Well, just
For
the
electric.
the
electric housing.
heat pumps
Mhm.
are really efficient and then actually maybe oversized for a tiny house.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would like to design a community that doesn't need that much heat. Right?
Yeah, where those tiny houses are helping.
Yeah. There are a lot of programs right now designed for solar for low income households. The state
Yeah,
has
And
programs.
they can qualify, some of them are tied into the house construction itself if they do a prefab that goes onto a foundation.
Right, like a Vermont kind of thing.
Vermont is, and they're not really, unfortunately, they're not doing so much right now, but
Yeah.
that they had a turnkey package, it included solar. So thinking of small and scattered may be a better strategy for production, solar production. Power.
Well, and I just want to say what I really like, one of the things I really like about your project is that you're not, the development is like, let's not all make these cookie cutter houses, but like allowing the villagers and people who come in here to bring their own house, their own design, very much like what our village looks like, and some people could even take their beautiful old farmhouse off of its flooded plain and bring it up there,
We were trying to figure out how we could do that. Yes, we actually were measuring the gaps between trees and the road to see if we could get. That's actually another reason why that East Hill access is important, is
Yeah.
because it would be hard to get a house up a 15% slope. So, but if anybody wanted to move their house, please tell me, because we'd like to figure that out.
Yeah, it's almost 9 o'clock.
Is there-
We used to have meetings that regularly went to 9, so maybe we need to wrap up. Is there anything else?
Well, if anyone has other questions I appreciate this is really helpful to me, because otherwise I might have left off those trenches, so. That's great. Any questions from the public, or maybe no one's listening from the public?
Who's RC, because we need to know what, who's on who's up there.
Hi, Richie, you have something you want to say? Want to turn your audio on?
Yeah, how's that?
That's wonderful.
Just wanted to say I've looked at all of the, I was at the design workshop, it was terrific. The energy was great. And there are all these pictures on what's been handed out of these tiny villages with trees, and the site is bare of trees. And it's a real, for me, a real aesthetic problem because the images that are created are treed and landscaped. And I don't know how we deal with that. But without the landscaping and the trees, it can be pretty stark up out on that field. That's all.
Thank you. You're here.
Yeah, I think there's one area that's heavily wooded, actually.
So parcel A does have a fair bit of small trees, and so there's a possibility that they could just be selectively cut.
Well, hold on, so what's interesting with a subdivision is that we're only making the roads. The lots are left. So unless the tree has to come down for the project, it won't, because that's an expense. So the trees would be left on the project, and they're typically, you know, toothpick trees because they're saplings competing with each other, growing too fast. So they, hopefully, owners will be encouraged to keep some of their trees. And I totally agree that street trees should be, it's to our budget, what our budget allows. Somebody at at the workshop drew, trees lining the East Hill Road on one of the plans, and it transformed that drawing. To think about that having trees, anything we can do to slow down traffic, so keeping the road narrow, having it lighted, I mean, it just was like, wow, what a difference.
Yeah,
And I
and
think we could.
the Conservation Commission's really committed to planting trees. So again, there's an already existing committee in the town that can get involved with helping people who buy these lots to plant trees.
Yeah.
And it's not on you guys. But you
Thank
can
you.
make that link and you can say, here, plant trees.
Yep, I would
Mhm.
love to see more trees. Be great.
But not trees like the health center. I couldn't help myself.
All right.
I can't, I
Okay.
can't stand that
All right.
suburban look and the,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Anything else?
no, I just need to talk about
Oh,
setting this
okay.
here.
We've got, Annie.
Annie, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, thanks, Janice. I just want to say, really impressed. I think the plans look really great. And I'm sorry that I missed the workshop because it sounds like it was really great. But one thing I was wondering, and it would probably been better to ask at the workshop, is there any way that this development could get access to the town garage? Is that near each other?
Arian has an answer to that.
I can answer that. Well, there's no, the intermediate landowner between this parcel and the town garage is not interested in providing any access at this time. The question has been asked, and the answer was not at this time.
So what the ordinance asks is if there might be a connection in the future, to please don't rule that out by putting lots where it could be.
You're saying, yeah,
So,
there's an end of a road. Yeah.
Right, if the community moves towards having any kind of road at the bottom of the hill, that is the place where a road could connect in the future. And it would be super easy for us to leave a right of way in between two lots for a future connection down. It would probably be the size of a lot, so you would hold a lot until the town decided that they wanted to sell it. But I have to warn you, there are significant wet areas between this property and the town garage.
Mhm.
So it would take a lot of negotiation for the town to be able to, and
With the state.
with the state and with the Corps of Engineers, because that would be the same sort of thing, an unpleasant impact. And I think the town can make a case for that. We could talk to the ANR and the Corps about that at the same time. However, it seems rude to the owner who said no.
Not, right,
So
let's
uh,
not go there.
so,
But
but what I would like to know really soon, if the town wants me to leave, if a road is going by there, to leave a gap.
yeah,
The answer is yes. Okay. Leave a gap. Okay, that's easy. It's really easy at this point.
any other questions from folks up there on Zoom? How about here in the audience? In person? Anything else?
I do need to know about that gap. Is there a chance that we ever have to supply water and sewer on that south, that parcel south? Because that would be the way part, I'm not terribly thrilled about sizing septic wastewater all the way down to Main Street for an unknown number of parcels on
Which,
that lot.
are you talking about over,
The neighbor who's
down
south of,
here?
yes.
You're talking about down
Yeah,
here?
the parcel that's between this parcel and the town
Right, so
garage.
you're talking about down here?
Yeah,
But if you bring water and sewer if you use this map,
Right.
right, then you would have water and sewer all the way around
but
here.
it'd be sized for this project,
I
Oh.
think you should size it for,
this project.
if that, for the individual who might wanna do a development there in the future time, if they wanted to do that, they should participate in the sizing of the.
It will be a large upgrade.
Right, so to me, it's
Okay.
like, if it was gonna be future developed by the owner and people who inherit it, they would wanna now get on the bandwagon, to
Right.
have the.
I don't think it's your
So-
job.
So my gap should be large enough to allow someone to come through with a main if they want. But I don't need to size the mains for it. But I will leave enough room that they can put one in if they really want to. I may hopefully not make it 50 feet wide because we will lose a lot. But if we could make it
You could also, I mean,
40 feet wide or something.
once you get your final
Mhm.
design, you'll see whether
Yeah,
it's just gonna be a road
yep.
with a possible conduit
Right.
or,
It'll just be, for now, it'll be a pedestrian path.
right.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, are you planning to develop to the limit that the regulations allow, like as far as, I mean, could
So
people
that was a
develop
strong-
additional?
Yeah, that was a
property in there
strong
if they wanted to?
message.
Yeah,
The only ones who had 50 units on their plans in the first round at the workshop were people who were using the traditional subdivision.
Mhm.
So 67 units is the most that would fit on this property. And most of them were close to that, and it's hard to fit 67
Okay.
units on this property.
so my point.
I would say
Yeah.
it was a pretty clear mandate from that group to
Maximize the land.
Right,
maximize the open space, but also to maximize the number of units.
Which was then the tiny house option.
Mhm.
Yeah,
so you wouldn't even be able to develop there without some sort of variance for additional development, because the lot size doesn't support it, right?
right.
Right,
Yeah, so it doesn't, yeah, it seems,
I mean, that's
it
actually
doesn't
one
seem
nice thing
productive
about
to
it.
emphasize for additional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's helpful stuff. There's a lot to consider. Thank you so much for your help tonight. This is huge guidance.
Good, glad.
I'm
Yeah.
impressed.
I am too. You guys,
And I'm actually surprised that after having so many people at the zoning. Talk about this, that so few came here, right?
This is recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that they have a chance to listen, and
Okay,
I think I'll be able to answer questions tomorrow at the abutters meeting.
okay. I was planning there would be more people here tonight.
So many meetings, gosh, everybody's going to too many meetings already.
Yeah,
No, I was just surprised, that's all.
Well, I hope people come, because for me, it helps to get the questions early.
Yeah.
Like, these were two important things that I wouldn't have included tonight. The trenching and the road, so. Great, thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thank you too.
Um,
Yeah,
we move to adjourn?
we have a permit.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
So,
position,
I have
conversation,
a
quickly.
method of communicating response to a violation letter by putting in a permit.
Say it again?
I have a member of the community who responds to my violation letter by putting in a permit. In 16 Main Street, where the church and the yoga, whatever,
Mhm.
whatever. Just to change use, but we have to go through the whole,
Is it the building? This
Yeah.
is the building owner or the
Okay.
business?
And
Building
what's the
owner.
permit for?
change of use.
To a commercial space or to a residential space?
No, it's commercial and residential now, but the businesses that are permitted to be there are no longer there. So
They just need to change the
Right, but we need
businesses.
to come up with language, so it doesn't have to go through another conditional use.
Oh, I know.
To put a new business in,
No, it should just be an amendment,
right, but it's still a change of use.
right?
Change
So-
of use to commercial and
It's
No,
already-
change of use of the
For
business
businesses
in a
in the-
commercial
In the
Oh,
commercial.
yeah.
area. So we need to schedule this hearing?
Yes, if we could have it next month and do that one early and then do the sketch plan review afterwards.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because I think this is gonna be very simple.
Yeah, so let's do that at 7:10 or
Yeah.
7:05 even. People sit around for 5.
Okay, 7:05?
Yeah,
Also, there's a,
7:05.
Okay, 7:05.
for
And you
March,
give it
what
like,
was
what,
the March
10
date?
minutes, not even.
March, what was the March date?
Scale comes out to exactly.
March 12th.
Corner, and then it gets right around one corner. it comes- Yeah. Yeah.
Sandy,
I understand that.
Sandy, could you email this to Karen?
I think I have it, I can email. it.
I did.
Oh,
But
okay.
I did.
forwarded it.
I'm terribly sorry I didn't do it.
Well,
more
I've been a little overwhelmed in my life, so.
Okay.
You want these dates? You get these to date dates?
3/12, 4/9, 5/14.
And then June 11th.
Yes,
Great.
I think I have that.
Okay, great. Good, good, good. All right, I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay,
I second.
I affirm, let's do it. All
Okay.
right, so, we do have to remove, stack chairs. If anybody would like to help us, yeah. If anybody would like to help us fold up chairs and move